People around the world are watching as the U.S. works to declare who will be our next president. Some are worried about how the outcome will impact them. Ian Lee shows us how people around the world are reacting.
Bonjour à tous, l'édition spéciale se poursuit.
Commentators around the world filled the airways.
Good evening. It's the election the whole world is watching.
With predictions about the U.S. presidential election. In every language, you could sense the uncertainty.
Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
Many Europeans are surprised the results didn't come straight away.
A wee bit anticlimactic waking up and there's no result after all the build-up.
Just very sad, just like shocked that it's so close.
Underscoring how pivotal the world sees the U.S. election, the hashtags Trump, Biden, and U.S. elections 2020 are trending across Europe and around the globe. A presidential election doesn't just determine who will lead the U.S. For America's allies, it selects their partner for the next 4 years.
The UK-US relationship is in great shape, and we're confident that it will go from strength to strength.
While America's rivals like China, Iran, and Russia also have an interest in how the results play out and what relations will look like going forward.
And Ian Lee joins us now from London to talk about it. Hi, Ian. So explain why it's so important to so many countries around the world. Who is the leader of the United States? And further, would you say that it's become slightly less important in recent years as we've seen a sort of global turn toward nationalism?
Hi, Tanya. First off, the U.S. can change the course of world history, so it really does matter who is at the helm. People look to the U.S. president for moral, political, military leadership. The U.S. president is in control of the most powerful military in the world, so when that military is engaged in a region, it can really have an impact, good or bad, for decades. And then just to kind of give you some examples of kind of how the presidents can interact in the international community, you have under President Obama 2 hallmark agreements that he was able to achieve. You have the Iran nuclear deal and the Paris Climate Accord. This was an international effort to get those accomplished. Well, when President Trump came into power, he pulled out of both of them, much to the frustration of our European partners. But if Joe Biden does win, he could go back into those agreements. The president also has his own achievements that for decades presidents haven't been able to do, and that is to normalize relations with Israel, Bahrain, the UAE, and Sudan. So that is one of his hallmark achievements too. So the U.S. presidents really do have a lot of power. And to go to the second part of your question, you do see a rise of nationalism around the world, but you still see a lot of countries looking to the United States for leadership, especially the United States is the leading member of NATO. And so that right there, you have a lot of people looking for leadership, especially when you see Russia kind of pushing its borders.
Absolutely. And so, Ian, what are the biggest concerns you've heard vocalized over the outcome of this election?
America is an example of democracy in action, Tanya. So there's a couple things that are really important when it comes to an election in the United States. The first thing is that they need to be seen as free and fair. America is the poster child for democracy. So if our elections are free and fair, that just is an example for the rest of the world where there are elections that aren't necessarily free and fair. We can look at Belarus. And so there has to be that example for a lot of countries, a lot of people in those countries who aspire to that. And the second important thing is the peaceful transfer of power. And in a lot of countries, that doesn't necessarily happen. And so the United States has been an example after every presidency. If the president is voted out, if they end their 8 years in office, there's always been that peaceful transfer of power. And that is it's an important example to the world.
Absolutely. Ian Lee in London, thank you so much for joining us.